Hi. Some of you have asked about my experience using a recovery drink recently on the Pacific Crest Trail, so I thought I'd make a video about it. Let me talk about why I decided to try out a recovery drink, where the recipe came from and what it was, and how you could make it at home, and what my experience was and what I think I'll do the same or different in the future. So why did I decide to use a recovery drink? Well, for the 5 weeks before I stepped off on the PCT, I essentially had done nothing. Very, very low level of physical activity at sea level, so I didn't have mountain lungs, and I definitely did not have trail legs. So I wanted to see if trying a recovery drink would help me in the transition to getting in really good physical shape with trail legs and not have some of those days which typically hit 3rd, 4th, 7th, 11th day in, which you might wake up thinking, I really can't perform today. So what was the recipe? Where'd I get it? Well, it was a relatively simple recipe, and it was almost identical to the one used on Gear Skeptic. Gear Skeptic has a fine series of videos on YouTube, including one on recovery drink and the recipe and the science behind it on YouTube. And you really owe it to yourself to check out his video, and I'll include a link in the comments below. And I pretty much used his recipe. So I mixed up a whole bunch of it, and I packaged it initially in some small vacuum packs here, also some larger vacuum packs, and then when that even got a little tiresome, I just sort of dumped a whole bunch of it into a half-gallon Ziploc bag and included it in my resupply boxes. What was the recipe? Well, according to Gear Skeptic, you really need just a very, very small number of things. You need some glucose, you need some fructose, you need a little bit of protein, and you need a little bit of caffeine. I treated the last one as optional after I'd done it for a few times already. So how do you get glucose and fructose? And what proportions do you use? Well, this is dextrose, but chemically speaking, it is glucose, 100% in a dry format. And you can get this on Amazon. You can get this from Walmart. You can get this from GNC. And you need a little bit of fructose. Well, fructose can be found in ordinary table sugar. Table sugar, sucrose, is half glucose and half fructose. And I use this particular form, the ultra-fine form, so when I shook it up in my shaker bottle, it would dissolve a little quicker. So according to Gear Skeptic, the proportions that you need are 3 glucoses for every fructose. So if you use equal amounts of dextrose, that is glucose, and sucrose, table sugar, that is half glucose and half fructose, you'll get 3 glucoses to 1 fructose, and you can do it by weight, you can do it by scoops, you can do it by handfuls, you can do it by gallons, however you want to mix it up, and it's easy for you. The next element that you need is a little bit of protein. Now, this protein is not used to build up your muscles, it's really used to facilitate the transfer of the glucose into the muscle cells itself. As it turns out, the most efficient form of protein that you can use is something that's easily dissolved, like whey isolate. I just happen to have this on hand, and so I mixed up a bunch of this in my recipe as well. Those of you who are vegan can substitute a soy isolate, and it is almost as efficient in transferring these sugars into your muscles. And the last element in the Gear Skeptic recipe that I adapted was a little bit of caffeine in the form of freeze-dried coffee. This is my favorite kind of freeze-dried coffee. Initially, I put some of this in each one of the recipes, and then I thought, well, you know what? At the end of a long day, maybe I don't want a little too much caffeine. So what I'll do is keep this separate and add it in as needed. So how did I take this? Well, I almost every day took it twice. I took it first at lunch when I stopped, and I would mix up a batch of this and then relax for a little while and then eat the rest of my lunch. And also when I stopped in the evening. Now there's a recovery window when you stop exercising, and it only lasts about 45 minutes to be able to process this recovery drink into your muscles most efficiently. So many times before I even changed my t-shirt, you know, got out of my wet clothes or whatever, I would mix up a batch of this, take it, and then go about the rest of my evening chores, setting up my tent, inflating my air mattress, etc., etc. And so it was only maybe an hour later that I was ready to eat dinner, and I could already feel the magic, if you will, of the recovery drink before I'd even eaten dinner. So I usually took this twice a day. So how would you make this at home? Well, you just take 2 measures of this, 2 measures of this, and 1 measure of this. And if you want to, add a little bit of freeze-dried coffee, but you don't have to. It does help, according to the science, it does help with the uptake. But if you think you're going to be taking it just before you're ready to go to sleep and you're kind of sensitive to caffeine keeping you awake, I wouldn't include it. But I did use it every day at lunchtime. I figured I could use the caffeine kick a little bit anyway. I used this bottle to mix it up. This is a half-liter bottle. I would put in about that much of the recovery drink, fill it up there, leaving a little bit of space for air, and I would shake it up. This bottle I got from IKEA, and I used this one because it didn't have many of the ridges that you would typically find on the bottom of many of the water bottles that you'd see that could catch some of the residue from the recovery drink. I've noticed in the past when I've used protein shakes that if you do have these crevices in your bottle, there will be some residue and you can actually smell it. So I was pretty scrupulous in cleaning it out at the end of every night. But I don't think I'm going to use this particular bottle in the future. It's 89 grams, which is about half of what I would typically use for a 1 liter bottle. And this one is only half liter. And so from a weight perspective, I'm going to be looking for something else. I think what I will do is use something like a Ziploc bag, fill it up with the, well, not fill it up, but put some of the recovery drink in, put some water in, leave a little bit of space for the air for it to slosh around. And I'm looking for something that would provide some structure to it as I sort of shake it around so it's not gonna, you know, fall apart and make a mess all over me. But that may be a little more efficient weight-wise in the future. But my results were 2 thumbs up. There was never a day I woke up and said, wow, yesterday wiped me out. I was always ready to go and give it another full day, even though the previous day might have been full and hard and long, and I didn't stop until, you know, well after dark. So 2 thumbs up. And I think I will be going out of my way to send myself some of this recovery drink at mail drops that I otherwise probably would not have had at all. You know, most places that I resupply, I'm perfectly happy to go into the town and resupply in town and not have to wait for a box or not try to intercept a box at a hostel, etc. But I think I will go out of my way to send myself some of this recovery drink. And I will send myself enough so that I could have, you know, 1 full dose, and it's usually about 70, 80 grams per dose, I would say, both for lunch and before dinner. So something you might want to try out yourself. It's a very easy recipe, and let me know if you try it out or what your experience is. Thanks for watching.